Hello and welcome back to Kate's Reflections. This is video 3 in a series we've been doing. So I think today Kate's just going to be speaking about some of the things she's been reflecting on over the last week. And I know that the other videos have been getting a lot of views and have been really helpful for people. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've been seeing this week.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. So I've been doing a lot of reflecting this week, and I think it's probably because I'm doing these videos that I'm just seeing the principles behind life every day. And in 1 week, I mean, I could talk about a whole load of things, but I'll just talk a little bit about ego and thought, how that came into play for me straight after the last video, and also about what I started to see about letting go of the things that we think we know, and letting go of belief and the infinite possibility that that can open up when we do let go. And so starting with straight after the video that we did last week, I went off into my ego, which I think I said to Dave, Dave's used to me doing this. And because what I'd wanted to share was this feeling of hope. I'd wanted to share that, you know, if you sort of move away from the sideshow, which is, you know, for Georgia, it was her anxiety, and you sort of turn around and you look at the main event and you look at the whole, then everything changes. And I'd been looking at a sideshow and been acting out of fear. And then I sort of turned around and I saw everything differently, and I wasn't acting out of fear, and everything changed. So, and the other thing actually is I watched the video put on by Leanne and Jessie, which was lovely. And what struck me was that our journeys, although the sideshow was different, you know, so Jessie, her sideshow was the eating disorder. The sideshow was different, but the journey was very similar. So Leanne and I were both acting out of fear. And it was like Georgia and Jessie, they both had a sense, you know, they're both quite young, and they both seemed to have this sense that was, you know, it's coming through a feeling. They were sort of saying, they were telling us, they said, this doesn't feel right. You know, for Jessie to look at her eating and her, the issues around the food, she said, you know, this doesn't feel nice. And for Georgia, you know, to mark her anxiety, you know, from 0 to 10, that didn't feel right to her either. And they were saying, this doesn't feel nice. But Leanne and I were acting, you know, we were scared. You know, these are our children and we love them, and we were scared for them. And then when we came across the principles, it was Jessie and Georgia who both said, this feels right. You know, can I just go and see Dave and Jen? Don't send me to that. I want to go and see Dave, and, you know, this feels nice. And so that struck me when I was watching that video. And so I'd been wanting to bring this hope that you don't have to have, you know, years of therapy, and once you look in a different direction, then everything can be okay. And I'd been really inspired. I'd reflected on that journey and felt really inspired, and I wanted to share that. And then I watched a bit of the video, and I went off into my ego, and I focused on this thought, which was, you look very self-assured, or you look very confident. And that thought sort of grew into, it was quite an insecure thought. And then the thing is, if you focus on this, and then I start to watch the principle in action, and it works 100% of the time. It's such an amazing system, because if you plug in here this insecure thought, you know, because the insecure thought was like, I didn't manage to share what I wanted to share, and I didn't do it well. And you plug it in, and then what comes out once you put this into your computer is all this insecure feeling. You know, you can't plug in an insecure thought and get a positive, happy feeling, and you can't plug in a really positive thought and get a negative feeling. It just works like that 100% of the time. And now I sort of watch it working, and the power of it as well is incredible when you watch it, because you have this feeling that sort of, you know, when you talk about a sinking feeling, it starts at the top and it just sinks through your body. And so I just watched that for a bit, and I wasn't too attached to it. I mean, I was a bit attached to it, but I let it go, and I could see what it was, and I was more interested in it. Whereas before it would have lasted for days. And in that moment, you know, you can't tell someone not to feel something, because in that moment, if that person carries on putting in a guilty thought, then out come the guilty feelings. You know, you can't say, just don't feel guilty. You know, it just doesn't, it's a system that once you see what you're thinking, what you put in is what comes out. So that was just playing out, very easy to see. And I love the way that I'm not so attached to it anymore. It's a relief that I don't have to go off into my ego all the time. And then I was just intrigued by the thought itself. I was just having a look at it. Now that I'm not attached to it, I can just sort of, you know, what was I thinking anyway? And then I looked at, you know, the whole thing about, I think, you know, sometimes there's this illusion of separation, you know, oh, she looks really, I remember at school, in the school playground, a few people said to me, after they got to know me, they said, oh yeah, we never really came and talked to you because you look too confident. You know, so we create this illusion of separation with our thinking and our beliefs and our prejudices or whatever it is. And then I was thinking a bit more about it, and I was also thinking that I'd felt so inspired to, this was another thought, I felt so inspired to share what I was feeling. And this is that space that I talk about in the other video, the space of reflection. When you're in that space, what it is this, it's inspiration, is how I see it. And that feeling of inspiration, when I listen to the video, and I think this is the thing about sharing this, is sometimes it's hard to share a feeling because you're having to put it into words, and then some of that feeling gets lost, or some of that inspiration, that feeling that you have when you're putting it into words, it's like that sort of slightly lost in translation. And then you're slightly becoming a teacher. And then there's that slight illusion of separation. And the thing is, and then you feel that connection gets lost. And in fact, there's no difference between, you know, me and anyone else. And the only difference between me and the old me is that I'm looking in a different direction. You know, I'm just looking, I've let go of everything I thought I knew, and I'm just looking in another direction. And then because through doing that, I then have a feeling that I'm okay in life, I'm meant for life, I can then reflect and contemplate, and I'm in that space of inspiration more. And it's a nice place to be. So then I was reflecting on that, and this metaphor started to grow, as they do at the moment. And I've gone off the bike and the pens and the lining paper, and now I'm doing this cliff jumping, which is so in the summer, the children and Pete, they all love to jump off really high cliffs into the sea, and I had this belief that I don't do that, and I'd find reasons for why I don't jump. So, you know, I'm a bit too old, or, you know, Pete doesn't have the same self-preservation that I have because I'm a mother, and all, you know, all these reasons why I don't jump. So I don't even take, you know, I don't even take my swimming things. And then this year I thought, well, you know, 3 principles. I thought, well, you know, I might just question that belief. You know, is it true? Why is it that I don't jump? Is it, you know, is it really true? So I thought, okay, I'm going to go and jump then. So we get to this top of this cliff. I mean, it's really high. I mean, I really, really high. And I get to the top of the cliff and I look down and I went, oh, God. I just went, sod the principles. I am not jumping off there. And all my thinking kicked in. And then I thought, actually, they didn't jump from up here. The first time they jumped, and I know this, they didn't all start up here. They actually went way low down. They started from much lower, and then they saw that they were okay, and then they went further up the cliff, and now they're jumping from right up here. But they didn't start up here. So I climbed down and went further down, quite a lot further down. But I was still jumping. I did still jump. And, you know, Pete was like, it was funny because 1 minute you were standing there and the next minute you were just gone. And I said, yeah, I just had to let go and I just had to just jump. That's my phone. We're going to hear my answering phone message now. Hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. Oh no, they picked up. And sorry. And I've forgotten where I was. Okay, so I realized that, you know, I could jump. And then I saw that as sort of, in a way, as like levels of consciousness. You know, you go higher, and when you come across the principles, you don't necessarily start off right up here. It's sort of, you have, I don't know, it's different for different people, but I'm finding the more I reflect, the more I'm having insight after insight after insight, and then I'm just going a bit higher. And every time I jump, I know I'm fine, and I'm quite enjoying it now. And so as I was reflecting on that, I thought, oh, that's quite cool. And then because I'm in that place of reflection and I'm feeling quite inspired, I'm thinking, right, well, let's put everyone on the cliff. And so then I put Georgia on the cliff, and she never was interested in jumping, metaphorically. And what she would do would be, I would, like in the evening, Georgia would get into a thought storm, and she would focus on her anxious thinking. And this would she would be plugging in these anxious thoughts, and out was coming all this anxious feeling. And it was all about, you know, tomorrow I've got to do this and I can't do it. And then this is going to happen and this is going to happen, and getting into a complete state. And I would say, look, you know, you can just read your book, you know, you can just switch off from this. You don't have to engage in all this thinking. She'd be like, no, you know, this means something, I have to, or she would just go, you know, she would not. Well, we'd usually end up in a bit of a barney because it was late and I'd want to go to bed. And it was like, you know, when you press your key, the computer keyboard, and you think you're going to get to where you want to go by continually pressing it, but it just jams up. And I'm just saying, just take your hand off. Or it's like when you're, you know, the computer is like heating up, and I'm just saying, just unplug it for a bit. But she wouldn't. She was so sort of attached. She just couldn't switch it off, or didn't want to switch it off. And so until literally, like I told you, about a month ago, and it was like she took my hand and she just walked down a bit lower down the cliff with me. And it was like, for her, we had this connection in that moment, and she trusted me. And maybe it was like, maybe at that point we just jumped together. And she saw that it was fine, because in that moment she let go. When she said, will you read to me, that evening, she let go of the belief that she had to focus on these anxious thoughts. She saw that there was another way. She didn't have to do that. And then she went, she went back, she went straight back up the cliff. And then what she did next, I think she took quite a big jump, because she let go of the belief that anxiety has a meaning. You know, her anxiety, she felt that it means I can't go to school, or it means I can't do this, can't go to my friend's house, or it means, you know, and she let go of that belief and she went to school. And even though she was still feeling anxious, it didn't stop her going to school. So she let go of that and she jumped again. And now she's, you know, she's playing around on the cliff. She's looking at which things are her ego. And I have to be careful not to push her, because, you know, what teenager doesn't spend time in their ego? You know, she's going to, when you try and push someone off the cliff, there's a massive, you know, resistance. So she's just going to find her own way. And then when I put Susan on the cliff, because she'll be listening, she used to spend a lot of time sort of on the top of the cliff, just sort of stretching and warming up and just, you know, thinking about it. And yeah, no, I'll jump. And then because she actually said to me, you know, I'm just going to take a small step. She actually used those words, I'm going to take a small step. And I think, I mean, Susan could say something different, but I think that she let go of the belief that she had to, that it would take, I think there was a time element, like, oh, I'm not ready yet. You know, I'll be ready once I've listened a bit more, and once I've read a few more books, then I'll be ready. But my anxiety is different, because I've been anxious for 30 years. You know, Georgia's been anxious for 3 years. So my anxiety is different. So I can't jump yet. And she let go of all of that. And then, and what she actually did, which she said to me, she said, because she was worried about COVID and leaving her flat, and she said, I'm just going to do one thing. I'm just going to, rather than signing these solicitor's documents on Zoom, I'm going to go into the office. And she said, I'm going to wear gloves and I'm going to wear a mask and I'm going to take my own pen. And that was her small step, or what she saw as a small step. But I said, it's actually a big jump. You're still jumping. You're still letting go of a belief, and off you go. And then she says, I get caught up, but then I'm reflecting. And that in itself, the contemplating that she's doing, that is getting her further sort of up the cliff. And then she, you know, the last time I spoke to her, she was off having an interview with this big financial firm, you know, and it's there's no element of time. It's just that letting go. And it's like, it's the difference almost between climbing with a rope, knowing you've got that rope, and then climbing not with a rope, or not knowing you've got the rope. So now that she's tied on, she knows that she's tied on, she knows she's fine, she can then sort of play around a bit, and she can just live, you know, you can just live life. And if I put myself on the cliff, I just wasn't anywhere near the cliff. I just lived completely inland, you know, and people would say, you know, do you want to come to the coast? And I'd be like, nah, not interested. And then when Georgia got really anxious and I started to really struggle, I think when I got to Dave and Jen's, I was like, oh, sorry, I'll just jump off the cliff, because I'd had enough by then. And I saw that I was okay. And I think actually the belief that I let go of, my first jump, and I think it was quite a big jump actually, the first jump, I think the belief that I let go of was the belief that there is separation between form and formless. You know, I think that I had just lived looking the other way, and I thought that, you know, it had nothing to do with me. So when I felt the presence that I've mentioned before, or the energy, you know, sometimes I just thought, oh yeah, that's for them, or that's for those people, or that's for the religion, or that's for, you know, the people who are more, you know, they do their, I don't know, more spiritual people. And I just thought that's nothing to do with me. And when I saw, the first time that I actually took that jump in the other direction, I felt it. I felt this energy, and what I thought was outside me I just felt it as part of me. And that just changed everything. And then from that moment, I think the weekend that I was with Dave and Jen, I just kept jumping, you know, because then I went straight back up and I jumped, and I felt that I really felt that all this belief, I let go of all this belief that Georgia wasn't okay. I saw that she was, so I let go of that, and that was a game changer for me. And then, you know, if we put Pete on the cliff, he's not even got his swimming things, and but it's completely fine, because he is still, you know, whether he knows it or not, he's still being guided. And he'll sort of say to me, you know, oh, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, and I go, well, you're fine. You know, you feel overwhelmed at the moment, but you know, you are fine. And I don't collude with it anymore. I used to really collude when Pete didn't feel good or Pete was stressed. Oh, I'd get stressed as well. I felt like I was on this roller coaster of a life where I lived everyone else's stresses and worries, and I just don't do it anymore. It's a big change for me. It's just, life is just easier, actually. And it's funny because when we let go of these fixed beliefs that we have, there's some beliefs that we feel more strongly than others. So, you know, when I left uni, when I grew up, I always thought I'm rubbish at languages. And I really thought that. I thought I'm rubbish at languages. And then I left uni, and for some reason, I questioned that thought. And this is the intelligence running through us, because why did I just did. I questioned the thought, and I said, hang on a minute, who said, just because my mum said that I was crap at French, and I didn't have a very good French teacher. And so I went, okay, I just told my family, I said, right, I'm going to go and live in Madrid for a year. And they were like, you're crap at languages, Kate, you can't go. And I went, well, who says? And I went and lived in Spain. I couldn't speak a word, and I came back fluent, and I was really good at languages. So I knew not to trust that belief, and I let that one go. But other beliefs that we have about ourselves, those beliefs that we've had since really young, you know, I am highly sensitive, you know, that belief that I had about Georgia being highly sensitive, that was probably linked to the fact that I thought I was highly sensitive. And in my family, for example, I'm one of four, and you all have your different roles that you play. And when you come back together, you all sort of fit back into this belief system of which role you are. So I was the highly sensitive, bit uptight one. And I don't feel that anymore. And I don't think I think something has shifted in that respect, because I don't think any of it's true. But there is something about these beliefs that we live our lives through. So, for example, I told you before about this, I think, with my cousin, and we had this conversation where she said, when I speak to my partner and I don't understand something he says, then I think I'm just so not clever. And I said, well, when I speak to Pete and I don't understand something he says, I think, explain it better. I don't think I'm not clever. And she said, well, that's because I've got low self-esteem. And I questioned that, and I said, well, you're saying you are low self-esteem. And she said, well, you know, and I said, but you haven't got low self-esteem now while we're talking. And when she teaches yoga, she's amazing. And I said, when you're teaching, you don't have low self-esteem. So that's when Dave talked about the lake and the ripples on the top. I loved that. You know, the ripples on the top are your ego, your self-esteem, your whatever it is. And then you are the lake, you're not your ego. And so I was explaining this to her, and then I reflected on it a bit more, and then I felt it. And it was like that's what it was like. It was like a big jump, you know, that lurching feeling when you have a jump. I had that feeling, and I went, oh my God, you're not your ego. And I rang her back and I went, you're not your ego. You're not your self-esteem. And she went, yeah, you just told me that. And I went, no, but you don't understand. Now I feel it. And there's a difference between intellectually understanding this and then reflecting on it and feeling it. And that's that lurching feeling when you jump, maybe. But that's when it comes alive. And that's, you know, when when you can't give this feeling to someone, you have to just try it out for yourself. But once you live in belief, my brother-in-law, and to a certain, I'm not sure my big sister or not, but there's this belief that they are highly sensitive. This seems to be a common belief in my family. So they have this belief that they are highly sensitive. So then if I say, for example, you don't have to take that so personally, that situation, because maybe they didn't mean it that way. And I'm sure that, they wouldn't have meant it that way necessarily. But then there's this idea that, well, no, because I'm highly sensitive, so therefore I do take it personally. And so then you start living via this belief system that you set up and you create, and through where you focus your thinking. And then it becomes so real that to let go of that seems really hard. And yet I'm just saying, you can, because I have. And maybe I've done it gradually. And each time one thing that I thought was true isn't true, then none of it's true. It's like a stack of cards. They all just start to fall. And then when you feel this, because Charlie sometimes says to me, he says, oh, at school, he's not going to be listening to this, I don't think, but he says the headmaster bangs on about resilience. And unless you understand and you feel it, unless you feel the ropes, when you're climbing and you're attached, then resilience doesn't really mean anything. It's like, well, I don't feel okay. So, in my video last time when I said, put the pen down or whatever, unless you feel okay, you're not going to put it down. Or, this is why I think the 3 principles are, mind, thought, and consciousness. It's like 3 pillars. And unless you look at all of it, look at the whole, the Trinity, you don't quite feel stable in a way. But once you do look at the whole and you feel you are okay, then so many other things drop away. So for example, I used to worry about everything. Kate, that was the other thing. Kate's a worrier. People used to say that a lot. Oh, you're such a worrier. And I'd worry about my children. And all it did was it would mean that I wasn't present with them. And I just didn't listen to them, because there's constant thought going on, which stops you being present. And it stops you hearing what they say, because you've got all this worry, and I'm just not doing that. All that sort of noise has gone. I can just have a nicer time with them, and the connection is different, because me worrying about them doesn't help. And then it's not really, at the moment, my eldest, he's been in lockdown, and he's been off school, and he hasn't got the predicted grades that he wanted for his A levels, so that means he can't go to the university he wanted to go, or all this stuff going on. Before, that would have been a problem, and it would have been, I would have worried, and then that affects how I am with him. Whereas now it's not like I'm detached from him, or I don't care. It's the fact that I know he's fine. I know he will be fine. I know he'll be fine, whatever the outcome is. And so then we approach it in a different way, and it means that you can sort of think a bit more clearly. You're not just coming from this constant place of they're not okay and oh my God, and you approach life differently. And the difference I see with my children is I just enjoy them more. And there's just more laughter. I'll have to ask them if they've noticed or not. And none of them are even watching my videos.
There were some really beautiful points you brought up in there, Kate. And we love listening to you talk.
Yeah, I think I was just sat there, and I felt so grateful to have been with you kind of in those 4 days, as you started to jump, and then just keeping the contact up. And it's funny, a lot of the things that you speak about are things that maybe coming across the principles I've taken for granted, and then there's things that you speak about that I feel like I had insight about once, but I've forgotten and I've got lost in it again. And it feels like a privilege to be having these conversations and listening in and just watching belief fall away from you. And you like become braver and enjoy life more, and hear how that kind of is impacting within your family. I feel really grateful for all of this.
It's, when you laid out what you wanted to talk about, and you were to talk about ego and thought, it seems like an irrelevance in a lot of respects. It's like we live in this world as human beings, and yeah, look, I'll talk about ego at some point, but right now I want to look at this problem. We'll talk about thought at some point, but right now I want to look at this problem. No, we'll talk about this conversation you want to have with us, but right now I want to talk about this problem. And it's interesting, it's like you said, you've been facing away for so long, then all of a sudden you turn 180 degrees and you look in that direction. You realize, oh no, that's the answer. The answer to life is to start to understand it. And the majority, and I wholeheartedly hold myself as one of these people who has spent their life not remotely interested in something greater than myself. And it was that created my suffering. It was always that created my suffering. And it was interesting because you said about, you were talking about Georgia, and you were talking about Jesse, how they said about, this feels nice. This feels nice. I want to listen to more about this because this feels nice. This feels right. And when I first met Sue, the lady who introduced me to the principles and now what I share and what Jenny shares and what yourself shares, it's like, I remember when I first sat down with her and she spoke, she didn't speak about all my problems. Like I'd spent all this time sitting down with psychiatrists and psychologists talking about all my problems and being given labels here, there and everywhere and medication. She spoke about nature. She spoke about trees, and me at the time I was a tree surgeon. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I remember bursting into tears, and she looked at me and went, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because you're the first person who spoke sense to me. You were the first person who is truly making sense. The other people didn't make sense. They were kind people, really kind people. And some of these people, I look back at them and I'm so grateful that they would give up time within their life to try and help me. But God bless them. They were on the same boat as I was on. I didn't want to be on that boat. I was trying to get off the boat, but they were wholeheartedly in there with me, and we were both going on this journey together. But I remember when Sue spoke, it was like, this feels right. It wasn't examining my pain and suffering. It was waking me up. That's what that conversation was doing. It was waking me up to the realization that ultimately reality is all something that, as you described, no separation. It is a thing that is taking place within our being. It doesn't look like it, but it is. And I remember that it was that kept me interested. The feeling of, this feels right. This feels right. And I love the fact that you spoke about this in time, how you described how Susan thought that this was going to take time. No, time doesn't ultimately exist. I often say this, the mind doesn't exist in time. The mind isn't governed by time. Time exists in the mind. that changes everything. There is no time outside of the moment. The moment is the only time. And this is why people can change, like yourself, Kate, in a moment. And it will always happen in a moment, because that's all there ever is. It's been a really lovely conversation that you've spoken about, and there's been so much things. I've written bits and pieces down as you've been speaking. But when you first spoke, I remember we had this conversation when you spoke to us last week about, did I come across a bit confident?
Oh, I have to tell you something else about that in a minute.
Okay. Go now.
Oh no, well, last night I was speaking to to Charlotte, my big sister in America, and we have such funny conversations now. She's getting onto this, and but she said, you know, you never used to be like this, Kate. You never used to, you know, look at the spiritual side of life, and then she said, and what she said was, she said, I love your confidence. And she didn't know that I'd gone through this whole thing of, oh, I look too confident. And she said, I love your confidence. And I said, and I thought about it, and I said, the reason why I feel confident is because this is coming from a different place. So before, when I read, like, when I was looking in the known, and I read this book, The Highly Sensitive Child, and I thought, right, well, that makes sense. Okay. And I start fitting that in. And I think I'm reflecting, because I'm fitting that into my belief, and it's coming, but it's actually coming from, it's not coming from within me. It's coming from the known, and it's coming from research about the brain. And I think, well, that makes sense. And now the difference, I was never inspired by that. The difference is this is coming from a place where I go and I reflect and I feel inspired. And it's an energy, and it's just a knowing, and it comes from a different place. And I was saying to Charlotte, I said, it's like, you know, when you're going out, this used to happen to me a lot. You're going out and you're usually in a rush, and you say, right, and then you have this feeling that you've forgotten something, and you're like, this feeling comes from somewhere else, and it goes, you've forgotten something, and you're like, and then your intellect kicks in, and you're usually in a rush, and you're like, no, I haven't forgotten something. I've got my keys, I've got my wallet. Ignore the feeling that's coming from somewhere else, and off you go.
I've left the kids.
And then you get to wherever it is, and you go, oh shit, I've left one of my kids at the petrol station. and yet every time we ignore that feeling. And it's like that. It's like this knowing that's coming from somewhere else. And then our intellect kicks in and goes, well, I know better. And it's 100%. Whenever I have that feeling that I've forgotten something, it is 100% is always right. And I always get them go, oh, why didn't I listen to that feeling? And I think it's a bit like, there's so many little clues to this. And yet we spend so much time in our intellect and in the sort of conceptual world that we just ignore it and ignore, well, I did anyway. And then I think people have been pointing to this, you know, for centuries. And then little quotes pop into my head, like, you know, the window of my soul. That just popped into my head. I was like, ooh, the window of my soul. What does that mean? You know, it's just this, it's just coming from somewhere else is all I can say. And I'm intrigued by it. And I find it, I go for these walks now, and I just find I'm inspired. And I didn't used to feel that.
That's, you know, that's beautiful. It's like, people have said to me, oh, you're a bit cocky, you think you know something. And I just say to them, it's the only thing I truly know. I know that I cannot explain it. I know that I cannot talk about it in terms of, and put it into some kind of coherent thing. But once you know, you cannot know. And it's not being cocky. It's just,
you can't not know.
You can't not know. Once you know, you cannot not know. And it's not that you then don't get lost and you don't go and live life and fully engage in this earthbound experience that we call being alive. but you know. I love that metaphor of that you just described about the what have I forgotten, that kind of little nudging. Come on, you know now, you know. And the beautiful thing about this is it does exist for everybody. You know, you found it within, George has found it within herself. And it's like Lal Jessie again, she's found it within herself. And we've seen people all around the world, like from all different backgrounds, wake up to this point within themselves and wake up and realize how life is truly taking place. It's a game changer.
You know, it's such a game changer, and also it's I don't like saying you know, it is so simple, and then we try and make it really complicated. So the whole, you know, like when you're talking about getting present, I think people are like, okay, how do I get present? And I'm trying to get present. And anything to do with trying or struggling to, or that's not it. And you can always point to almost what it isn't. Yeah. You know, it's none of those things. And then, you know, it's just, if you're listening to this now, you're present, you know, it's listening. Or the other day I got home and it was funny because this is what you always talk about, that connection, which I never felt before. And I got home and I was thinking about a whole load of things, and I parked the car, and there was they parked the car next to the hedge and there was a bird and it was sitting on the hedge. Now, before, I never would have noticed it because I would have carried on in my thinking. I never left my thinking. I never left my intellect. Well, I must have done, but I didn't know that I could. So you know, now I look at the bird and then I allow myself just to leave my thinking, leave all my personal thinking. And I looked at the bird and I felt this sort of, you know, who knows? It just felt like this bird was looking at me. I mean, it probably wasn't, but so I was looking at this. It was a blackbird on the bush, and I was thinking, or I was just reflecting rather than thinking. I was just going, I wonder how you eat berries. I've never watched a bird eat a berry, and it put this, and it was like it was going, okay, I'll show you how I eat berry, and it put it in its beak and it swallowed it, and I went, oh, okay, so yeah, obviously you don't have teeth. Obviously you're going to swallow it, and then it looks like it looked at me and went, yeah, but I can do more than that. And then it put another berry in. And then it put another berry in. It was a 3. And then I started counting the berries. And I was like, 4, 5, 6. And it went up to 12. It just like put 12 berries straight down its beak. And then it was like, it went, see, that's what I can do. And then it just went off. But in that moment, I'm just present, you know, and it's nothing complicated. It's just having this balance between all your personal stuff and your thinking and what's going on, and just letting it go. And just
there's a quote by Jesus Christ, and I'm not religious, but I love it. And he just said, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like the child. And you know, we in the West are kind of brought up with the idea that heaven is a place you go to after death. But I think when I listened and read and become aware of what that message was, I don't think Jesus was talking about a place we go after death. I think he was talking about states of being right now. Heaven and hell are states of being. So to enter the kingdom of heaven, it's something that you do in a present moment. It's not something we look forward to. It's something that exists now, here on earth. And likewise with hell. I've been to hell. Hell's a shithole. It's a place within my being that I've visited, and it was hell. It was painful. It was sorrow. It was guilt. It was heartache. It was depression. And then I found heaven. And again, it was a place within my being, within my consciousness, with the space within me that I live out of. And so it's like, this is one of the things that as we start to become aware of the nature of the role of thought within the experience or reality that we encounter, it's like we start to see through the facade, the veil of reality, and we start to wake up to the power that we truly hold. Every single last one of us, since time immemorial, has been this force, this creative force of the reality that we encounter. We get to play the game of life. And as we start to wake up to this, as we start to wake up, I love the way you just described how, as your beliefs drop away, it opens you up for new. It opens you up for new. You get to create a new reality in that moment. You get to experience a new reality in that moment. And one of the things that I really notice, and many people notice, is like in life, we start to really take life seriously. We start to think that, you know, we do a lot of work with kids and stuff like that. And God bless these kids, you know, they're being taught to take life seriously, that life has to be serious. If you're not being serious, you're not taking life. You're not being, what's the word? You're not being sensible. You're not getting with the real world. You've got to take life seriously. And yet Jesus was saying, to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like a child. Don't take life seriously. It's a game. Don't take this game of life too seriously. And as you were speaking about that, one thing that came to mind was our friend Faye. She had a baby called Otis. And we were in the garden one time and Otis just froze and watched these two pigeons fly over the top of him. And he was like, he nearly fell over backwards watching them. And he was like, and Jen was like, did he see that? See how interested he was in the pigeons? And yeah, to him, it's a miracle. To him, it's the most phenomenal thing. What the hell? Look at that. What's that? That's amazing. He hadn't conceptualized. He hadn't gone, oh, that's just a pigeon. I know what that is. He was present and he saw the miracle and the marvel of existence in that moment. That's what being like a child is. To be present in the moment and to see that everything is ultimately a magic trick, to see the magic in life. And I feel like, Kate, when you do your reflections, this is what you find. You are unraveling the bullshit that you've lived out of. You're seeing through the veil. And it leaves you in a space of awe and beauty and wonder. And in awe and beauty and wonder, there is nothing but magic and beauty. I love the fact that you take the time to reflect. Many people say, oh, don't look back at the past. No, the past is a really beautiful gift laid within it. It's not a case of don't look at the past. You know, the past truly doesn't exist, but we can still learn from it. We've got a couple of colleagues called Keith and Vald, and they would say, hindsight is insight. To be able to look back and learn, what a gift. What a gift we truly possess. This mind is a truly beautiful thing. Once we start to understand it, it becomes even more beautiful. And I love the way that you said it's been gradual change, and it will be for the rest of our lives. Because there's no end. There is absolutely no end. And I think that's a really exciting thing. That there is no end to our learning. There is no end to experience.
I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
really,
Kate.
Really nice.
Thank you.
You really brought up some really beautiful points in this, and yeah.
Actually, another thing my sister said last night. She said, you know, something about, well, what she was implying was you've lightened up. Because I did. I took life too seriously,
yeah.
And I think that's if you take one thing away from this, life's not meant to be so serious. And the reason I can speak, you know, about this with such knowing is because I used to be like that. I took life so seriously. I was the one. I was the uptight one. I was the one who took life too seriously. And then it's not very nice to be around either. I don't think I was very nice to be around probably sometimes when I was taking life too seriously. And now I've lightened up. No, I can lighten up. Anyone can lighten up.
Yeah. Agreed with me too. Oh, thank you, Kate. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I will see you another time.
You will. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Bye, love.
Bye.